Welcome back to the Magnolia Shine podcast. This is a Tuesday edition of our show. I'm your host, Trellis Williams, alongside the one and only Blake Levine. Today we got a big show for you. We're going to talk a little baseball as we get into the season's knocking right on the door. We're going to talk about some of the top teams here in the state going into the season, who Blake thinks are his champions. So we'll talk about that. We will also talk about the MAIS, who has come out with some new districts and some new classifications for how they are going to have their sports be competing starting next year. We're going to talk about that as well. And, we're going to hop into the college baseball scene. And that's all here on the Magnolia Shine podcast. Begins right now. We really appreciate you joining us on the Magnolia Shine podcast, and we appreciate our sponsor, which is Austin Graham with Mississippi Farm Bureau. Whether it's life, whether it's auto or home, that's the man that you should talk to. His phone number is on the screen right now. That is Austin Graham, our sponsor, and we would love for you to hit that subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button to the Magnolia Shine podcast. Blake, down here in Mississippi, we got a beautiful day outside. A little chilly, but it's beautiful outside. How are you doing right now?
Man, I'm doing good, but it is January. You have to look at the calendar.
That's right. But I like 70 degrees all year round, Blake. So, just a little bit spoiled on my end. But anyway, we're going to hop right on into talking about this MAIS redistricting. We got different districts. We have different setup for how things are going to be done. And so, Blake, what were your takeaways? You kind of broke this news on your Facebook. And listen, I got to say, folks, you should definitely check out not just the Magnolia Shine podcast Facebook, which obviously you're going to follow already. I'm assuming that you've already followed that. But you also need to follow Blake Levine's Facebook page as well, because he gives a lot of stuff also. Blake, what were your takeaways from the new districts? Because we saw a lot of weirdness go on this past year, and I know that they kind of wanted to fix that after 1 year.
Yeah, they've cut some of the championships out, right? So in the smallest level, 8-man, it's pretty much the same thing. But when we look at 11-man football, 2A, 3A, and 4A, they cut a championship out of 2A and they cut a championship out of 4A. Now, 3A still has 2 championships for their level. However, they have added teams to it. So I guess in a way, there is 4 levels, but just unofficial. The biggest classification 4A, instead of having 3 championships and 20 teams, they're going to have 2 championships with 14, which is really the big 4 in their championship. And then the next 10 schools, which I'm sure you have right there, and we can put it up on the screen of those 10 other schools that are in there with Jackson Academy, Prep, Hartfield, and MRA. When you look at 3A, now I believe there's 21 schools with 2 championships, which, I get. And I do want to make a note that the MAIS does say that they are going to try to make that 1 championship in the future. So that may be as soon as next year. That is the goal. And it's written down in their minutes that, hey, we're trying to get this thing down to 1 championship. 2A's got 16 teams and 1 championship, which is kind of what it was like in the past. So in a way, they've kind of gone, back more closer to the past, not fully there. They've cut the championships out. So before there were 6 championships for those 11-man football, and now it's down to 7. There were 7 championships, and now it's down to 4. So just a little more quality to the championships. And I think, Trellis, you and I agree. The way it was before just was not. It just wasn't. It wasn't good. There's no other way we can put it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And now I have to say though, Blake, they still are doing the PowerPoint thing when it comes to how they do it. My question, I guess, I know that you have the levels that Jackson Academy, MRA, Jackson Prep, Hartfield, they're at a level that is hard to be matched by the schools outside of those 4. We saw Park Lane beat Jackson Prep, which was awesome. Park Lane had a really good year, but we can't expect that year in and year out. It's just hard for those teams to compete with those top 4 teams. I know that kind of messes with just having one champion for each class. Why can't they try to figure out a way to have one champion for all the classes, just like we see in the public schools?
So you mean just going back to the 6A, 5A, 2A, right? Like the kind of with the format that they had beforehand.
That's right.
I guess they could. I mean, I think a lot of people were upset with that format, but the funny part is I bet you all of them would pray it came back, right? For all those people that were upset and wanted this huge change to their format, would they probably want it back now if they could? So it's kind of funny. Sometimes you don't realize what you got until it's gone.
That's right.
I mean, look, I remember, and people can discuss this even further back. What was it? There used to be 5 classes in the MHSA, then there were 6, and now there's 7. When they made 7, a lot of people were upset, and then all of a sudden now everyone's used to it and happy with it, and we're all good to go. The problem for the MAIS here is that they're probably going to change it ever so slightly next year as well with the new student population gets tallied. That will be 4 different championship formats and districts in 4 years. That's a tough thing to do, for everybody. So I know they're just trying to find something that they can stay with for at least, a decade, something that they can do. And I mean, look, if they didn't have a gap between the big 4, JA, Prep, Hartfield, and MRA, if they didn't have that huge gap, I don't know if we would even have these problems. Because, everyone's complaining about some of the low, but it all starts up at the top because there's 4 teams that are so dominant at the highest level, and they do not want to play in a 4-team conference, right? I mean, it's kind of that's a tough thing to say. Oh, we're in a 4-team district, and then we got a lot of teams that don't want to play us, and da-da-da-da. That's what really, I think, starts the whole process of it being a tough thing to do. And I got to give the MAIS credit because they are trying to make changes on the fly, right? I mean, they didn't have to do this. They could have waited a whole nother cycle, but they decided to go make a change, and you got to give them credit.
Yeah, for sure, and I think they're trying to make it as good as possible. I guess always my question is, all right, so you got the Marshall Academy situation that we saw during the season. How did those kind of things cease to happen? Because I don't see that getting fixed here. You still have a benefit of dropping into a lower division so you can win a championship.
So here's the thing. Before, in the previous format, there were, I guess, 3 different ways you could lower yourself. There was a way you could lower yourself in the 4A, the 3A, and the 2A, right? Because I know there was 3 championships in the 4A, but technically those were for the big 4. There were 2 championships in the lower level of 4A. Right. So I guess in a way they've knocked out 3 chances of this happening to just 1 level where this could happen. And that would be at that 3A level where they still have the 2 championships. But I guess the better part is there are 21 teams, so I guess it helps a little bit. That is still, to me, the biggest fault that they have in this format is that there still is this possibility. And maybe, Trellis, this is the last year, and they go to that 1 championship format the following year, and it's all gone. Because I think with the power, because it's not standings based, it's easier with the PowerPoints to manipulate, right? Because in standings based, you play your teams and it's records, it's tiebreakers, it's the whole thing. But here's the concern that I have when it comes to throwing games. We're not going to see the Marshall Academy thing again. That's not going to happen. What's going to happen is if teams choose to do this, they are going to do it early in the season, not late. Yeah. They're going to play somebody early in the year, and in the disguise of, hey, we're just trying to get young kids action in non-district games and lose games.
That's right. Yeah, because
I mean, that's a possibility. I'm not saying anyone's going to do it, but it's a possibility.
That's right, because what Marshall Academy did was they made a mockery of it. They made a spectacle of it. It was kind of in your face, which also made it worse. I mean, you got to say that made it worse because it was okay, we all know what's going on.
Can I say something, though? Part of me gives Marshall Academy a little credit for doing this.
Well, yeah. Basically, what they did was they made sure that this wasn't going to happen again. They made sure
in a weird way, they by them doing that, they pretty much made everyone come to the table and make a change immediately, right? I mean, they were kind of the martyrs. They were kind of the martyrs of this playoff format. And you know what? In a weird way, they'll go down as a team that I think weirdly gets some level of respect for being the ones to say, I don't like this. I know you kind of get, maybe not respect.
And they weren't hiding it. They weren't hiding it.
But they put up up a middle finger to them.
Yeah.
They did.
No,
They
sure.
did.
Yeah.
They said do something to us. They said do something to us.
They sure did. Football, Blake, I think you'd agree with me on this, that football is the main thing that this affects, though, because we see in basketball, whatever class they're in, they have their state championships and things like that. But really, that MAIS overall tournament kind of cures all that stuff. It kind of makes it to where we're gonna see teams come to the table and compete. Another thing about basketball is that even though those top 4 teams still tend to be the best in basketball as well, in a basketball you can challenge those top teams. It's a different type of sport. So really, I would say that football is probably what everybody's thinking about here.
Yeah. Well, I heard rumors of softball teams throwing games to get in lower divisions. So it honestly was not. It was not a football thing. Now I can't prove that. I can't say that with certainty, and I don't want to accuse anyone. I'm just saying that I heard those rumors from parents, and obviously parents sometimes have a lens that's only for them. So I don't want to say that it's matter of fact. It's just I had at least more than 5 parents say this happened in softball specific.
That's right. Another thing that we have seen is that the MAIS making a move that seems to be trying to curb recruiting. You talked about this as well. You put this out on your Facebook as well. And I can read this out loud just so we can clarify
please read this.
To the audience. So, a student athlete who transfers after their 10th grade year and receives financial aid from a member school shall be ineligible to participate in athletics. This financial aid restriction will be in effect for 1 year from the date of transfer. After the 1-year financial aid restriction is ended, the student will be allowed to receive financial aid according to the school's financial aid policy and be eligible for inter-school competition assuming the student meets all other eligibility requirements. An exemption, though, is any student whose family makes a bona fide move of 60 miles or more will be exempt from the above financial aid restriction. And so what we see there, I think that that's a perfectly reasonable rule right there, because now what you're talking about.
But Trillis, here's where I'm confused. Does that include MHSA or is that just MAIS to MAIS? I got to get that clarified.
Yeah, it seems as if this would probably. Well, no. The MAIS can regulate what their schools do with MHSAA schools as well. And they probably should if they want to keep that relationship with the MHSAA, because the MHSAA allows those schools to play each other. And, if it gets bad enough, you could see a situation where they don't even want to fool with each other anymore. Now, obviously, there is a certain code dependency there where it's like, hey, look, they like the matchups. But at the same time, if it gets too bad, you never know.
Yeah, obviously there's probably some ways around this, and people will try to, manipulate the financial aid part, right? Or, here's a gift of $10,000. You're just paying it out of your bank account. I don't know how that would work, how you prove that and all that. But it's interesting. It's an attempt. Like I said, I want to clarify if that's MHSA to MAIS as well as just MAIS to MAIS. But either way, I think it's a good idea. Look, I'm giving the MAIS credit. Pretty much saying you can recruit kids, but they got to pay their way. They got to be like any other student that goes to your school, or you got to sit a year. And honestly, no high school kid is moving to sit a year, right? That's just look. No. Even if you're a Division I football player, you're not going to sit a year, right? That's just not. I just don't see those scenarios happening. So really interesting. Now we'll see how the House bill, Senate bill, when it comes to school choice, makes any difference with this, and if it makes this null and void. Right, because obviously there could be different ways to do it, but I don't want to get too far into that specifically. But there is some dynamics to this that I kind of want to clarify.
That's right. But again, I do think that this is a good rule here, because having a situation where you have maybe a student, because you don't know if it's MHSA to MAIS, you don't know if that's where the ruling is. But if you're talking about private school to private school, you really don't want that situation where somebody grows up going to this private school, maybe a smaller private school, and then you get one of the major ones to go and be able to offer a deal that the smaller one can't match, and all of a sudden high school sports is turning into that. You really don't want
Well,
that.
what's interesting though is to me it's a little interesting, right? Because the 60-mile move, that's a long distance, first off. But two, if it's MAIS to MAIS, I guess aren't you paying tuition anyway? So why would you need financial aid? I don't know. It's just kind of interesting, right? Like, let's say you were a private school at Central Hines, and now you're going to go to MRA. I mean, I don't know what the tuition is for each of those schools, but Central Hines is obviously charging some level of money to go to school.
Yeah, it's not going to be anywhere close though, man. I got to say, you take those big 4 private schools, it's like a whole nother stratosphere of paying money. It's like triple. And so it gets interesting, man. It gets interesting because especially with the private schools, because in the public schools we'll see how if the school choice bill comes through, but with public schools, since it's all free of tuition, if you're able to choose to go wherever, it's money's not even a part of it. But in the private schools, money's just a big part of it. It's just kind of the nature of it. That's why you have to have certain kind of rulings for it. I do think that they're doing a good job making this attempt. It's just hard to really regulate.
Yeah, it's going to be tough to regulate. That's for sure.
That's for sure. Okay, so
you know what? You'd rather have the rule in there than not have the rule in it and throw your hands up when something happens.
Definitely, 100%. So listen, so Blake, we're gonna go ahead and move a little bit to some baseball. All right, so in high school baseball, Blake, you have released your top 10 going into the season and your champions in the MHSAA for 1A through 7A as well. I see. Listen, we're gonna go through your list right here. So I see starting with number 10 going up to number 1. So I know at number 10 you have Brandon at that spot.
Yes. Yeah, so look, Brandon obviously has lost a lot. I mean, they lost a kid that literally just got Jay McQueen, who got drafted in the MLB draft, right? I mean, so they're losing some talent, right. But here's the thing. One, I think they have one of the best coaches in public-private school baseball, Daniel Best, a baseball legend in his own right, playing. I think what's interesting is even if they've had subpar regular seasons, they find themselves in contention to win it all. They won it 2 years ago. They were in the state championship last year. They were in the semifinals, I think, the year before. Maybe it was the year before that. They just seem to always find their way into that Final Four, no matter how bad or great their regular seasons are. So I just really like what they've built. It's a culture and I was debating them or Warren Central, and I ultimately put Brandon in.
And at number 9, you have Columbia Academy down in Columbia, Mississippi. Man. You've got them at number 9.
Yeah, the Buckley brothers, those two kids, one is going to Ole Miss. I think the other one's going to Southern Miss. Those two brothers, man, woo-wee. I mean, a tandem. When it comes to pitching, there's not many schools that can match up with them. They have hitters. They're a quality. And Columbia Academy, they are going to be a test for whoever plays them, whether it's public or private schools. They're legit. I mean, they're legit in the South.
And then at number 8, you have Petal, which is down in a similar area in southern Mississippi.
Yeah, the Petal team, to me, what makes them so good is they have young talent, too. They have a lot of kids that, they're going to have back even next year. They got a kid that moved over to Petal that is a Division I baseball player, and that obviously, when you add a Division I baseball player to your team, you're going to get a lot better. But Petal, for me, it's the amount of young talent that they have. So they're going to be good for years to come here.
And then at number 7, you have Oak Grove.
Look, Oak Grove, again, another super talented team. 2 rivals right there, the Leaf River, separating them.
Right.
Oak Grove has arguably the best player in the state in Eric Booth Jr. He's a projected first-round MLB draft pick. Comes from a family, a lineage of great athletes. He is as fast as it comes. He's committed to Vanderbilt. But it's not just him. They have a lineup full of guys. And yes, they've lost 3 or 4 seniors that I thought were special last year. But their roster is still really good. And they got a great coach.
I'll tell you this, Blake, just as a side note, just talk about this talent that's in Mississippi. I mean, it seems like we're constantly finding first-round baseball draft picks in our state. And, if you think about that, this should not happen this often, proportionally.
Because per capita, this high school baseball is becoming the best in the country per capita. Yes. Obviously, California, Florida, those schools, they're going to have –
but they have way more people. Right? Way more people.
Right. But the per capita, I mean, when you look at JUCO ball here, when you look at college baseball, I mean, Southern Miss, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State are all ranked in Baseball America's top 25, right? I mean, it's right. Impressive. But we'll talk about that in just a second.
Yeah, we will. So that's very impressive. So then, hey, some more from Southern Mississippi here. We got Sumrall at number 6.
Yes, obviously there's a lot of schools from the South on this list, from the South region, but the South is slightly better at baseball than the North. Don't hate on me. Sumrall, they're probably they're probably the second best of the non-big schools, right? There's another school that's coming down there from the MHSA that's special at number 2. But Sumrall, look, year in and year out with Andy Davis, and he has his son Drew Davis, who played for Team USA, and they got a collection of kids that I think are really good, and they should be the overwhelming title favorite in 5A.
And then at number 5, you got Hartfield Academy, another private school on this list. But Hartfield definitely good at pretty much every sport, but very good at baseball.
Yeah. You know what? Again, a really complete team. A couple kids going to Southern Miss. I think it's 2 kids. Maybe it's sorry, we're trying to do this all off the top of my head. Right. So they have that level as well. Their coach, really good. Hartfield, the biggest thing is that, Jackson Prep, who I actually don't even have in my top 10 this year, when you talk about Jackson Prep, JA, MRA, Hartfield, this will be a fun battle with the private schools at the highest level.
And then at number 4, you got MRA.
Yeah, I think these 2 teams are going to battle it out for that state championship, possibly. JA is going to have something to say, although they lose their coach Corey Dickerson, a couple months before the season because he takes a job with the Tampa Bay Rays. By the way, can't blame him. But that's a tough thing for Jay. That's a tough thing for Jay, and Jay's got a lot of players too as well. So I think there's a good collection for those top private schools.
Right. And then at number 3, you got Lewisburg.
Yeah, this is one that I think other people maybe have lower, but I just really like this Lewisburg roster. I think they're the best team in the North with regards to any level other than the team that's at number 1, which is not that far away from them, funny enough. And I think many people probably know who I have at number 1 just because, it's Championship Central over there. But I think Lewisburg, this is a year that I think they can take that 7A crown home.
Then number 2, you got PCS, and just want to take a second. PCS, Sumrall, Oak Grove, Petal, Columbia Academy. All those are within 45 minutes of each other.
Look, if you're in 3A, MHSA, and PCS is coming into the building, I mean, PCS, like, I was talking to this one guy, and he's somebody that really helps me out with the information. Mississippi baseball fan guy, I think it is, maybe on Twitter. He's really good guy for this information. He puts out some really good stuff. I definitely bounce ideas off him. He bounces ideas off me. He's really helped me out. He makes the case that PCS would win 7A this year if they played.
Oh, wow. So he basically has PCS as one of his top, if not top team.
Oh, look, I mean, I have him number 2 with him. I mean, their roster's loaded.
Yeah. And then your number 1 is the one and only Magnolia Heights up in Senatobia.
Yeah, they have to be number 1. They were arguably number 1 last year. They've had seasons of being number 1. They just, from top to bottom, kids committed to SEC schools, different levels too, grade levels with kids at that level. I mean, it's insane. It's insane what they got.
Yes, that completes your top 10, Blake. And I want to move over, and I want you to give us – you got your championship picks moving to the MHSAA only right now. Okay, your 1A state champion, Blake. You got West Union.
West Union.
Yeah.
Look, they won baseball last year. Their basketball team is elite.
Very good.
And they're going to be and their baseball team, they have Mr. 1A returning, John Gray Morrison. That team is just has one of those 1A groups of boys that is just special, and they're going to bring home some hardware to their school, and it's always fun to see stuff like that. And every 1A school has their shot at this at some point, where they just get a group of guys that are just at another level.
That's right. That's right. In 2A, you got Clarkdale.
Yeah. No, so that area is really good for baseball. That Meridian, sub right there, Meridian area. Clarkdale is really good this year. They've been right there knocking on the door year in and year out. I think this year is a year that they get it done. I think Pisgah moved up to 3A, I think, or else I thought Pisgah had a shot maybe in 2A, but I like Clarkdale.
And then 3A, of course, you have PCS. You have them as your number 2 team in the state, and of course, you have them winning 3A.
Yeah, nothing more to say there. Just a complete roster. If somebody upsets them in 3A, it will be the biggest upset in the state.
That's right, but look, hey, if we get a little bit of action from baseball that we got from football, then we're gonna see like just like we saw Heidelberg and West Point get dropped off right there at the end. You never know. Never know. We're looking at 4A. You got West Lauderdale as your champion.
Look, how can you pick against them? It would have been nice to see Summerall and West Lauderdale maybe get another shot at it, against each other. Those are 2 proud programs, but Summerall moves up. But I think for me, West Lauderdale, they proved it last year when they played Purvis. They have the most state championships of any public school, and it's hard to pick against them year in and year out. West Lauderdale is kind of the West Point of that level of and school size in Mississippi when it comes to baseball.
Right. And then we got in 5A, we have Summerall. You got Summerall as the champion. You said.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it's going to be tough in 5A for somebody to knock them off. Not that it can't happen, but that's one of the top 10 teams in the state. And, there's not another 5A team, at least in my top 10 at the moment. And I think that they are an overwhelming favorite.
And then in 6A, you got Warren Central. Just like they brought in the football, You think they're going to bring in the baseball as well?
Yeah, I thought about putting them close to my top 10. That guy that I was telling you about, he's a big proponent of Warren Central this year. I'm going to trust him on this one. I thought about putting them, they were somewhere in my 12 to 15 range, maybe even 11, 12. So I felt pretty good about that. Obviously, there's other schools that, down south that have a really good shot, but I'm taking Warren Central. And then Lewisburg for 7A, as I'm speaking it into existence. I just really like this Lewisburg team.
Yeah, and you had them at your number 3 team in the state. So that completes your championship picks, Blake, for baseball coming up this year. Baseball season's right around the corner. In just a few weeks, baseball will be getting started in the state of Mississippi. That's very exciting. Just like we mentioned earlier, Mississippi per capita, best baseball in America. All right? And we're saying it right here on the Magnolia Shine podcast. And so we'll be covering that when baseball season comes around. Obviously, we're taking a little bit of a break from talking basketball today. Thursday, we'll be back to talking basketball. We've got some districts to hop into, Blake, where district games have happened, where the teams line up. We've had some Rumble in the South games. Anyway, we will be talking about that on Thursday. Just to let you know, please be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share with anyone else who'd be interested in high school sports coverage that we have here on the Magnolia Shine podcast. And so now, finally, we're going to talk a little college baseball, okay? Just like you mentioned earlier, got Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Southern Miss, all top programs in the country, and they're ranked in the top 25. You said, according to a different source, I don't think according to ESPN, Ole Miss is in that top 25. It's Mississippi State at number 4, and then Southern Miss at number 20.
Right. So Ole Miss is not ranked in the D1 baseball rankings, but they are ranked in some others, in that 20 to 25 range. And I think one might even have them at 16. Don't quote me on that. Maybe like Perfect Game might even have them at 16. Southern Miss is, I think, ranked in all of them, and then Mississippi State is top 5 in pretty much all of them. I think they were number 3 in Baseball America and number 4 on D1 baseball. So Mississippi State, this is a championship or bust team. Get into the College World Series or bust. I mean, they are loaded. Yes, there's a lot of expectations with the new coach. There's expectations with the transfer portal and the young recruits that they have. Maybe pitching is going to be their biggest issue if they're going to have one. But Ole Miss returns a lot of guys, and I know Southern Miss lost some guys in the draft, Middleton and some Monasteries. But man, that is a loaded baseball team. That is a loaded baseball team for Southern Miss.
Definitely, and the thing with Southern Miss is that you got to give them some credit just in their athletics overall. They're really pushing forward in a lot of different ways, a lot of different areas, a lot of different sports, which is good. And their baseball just consistently. I mean, listen, they're consistently hosting regionals at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So you got to give them a lot of credit for that and what they've been able to do there with that USM baseball program.
No, absolutely. I mean, look, and they just have a filter of coaches that hold a certain standard, and it just continues no matter who's at the lead. And it's because they coach under each other, and they learn the standard, and then they execute it.
Now, here's the thing. Mississippi State did win the College World Series in 2021. You're talking about College World Series or bust, like making it to Omaha or bust here. What would be the biggest challenge for Mississippi State? Obviously, SEC baseball is very tough. But what would be the biggest challenge getting in the way? Yep.
Yeah, it's a young pitching. Obviously a lot of their best pitchers are young guys, and sometimes that's really tough, for teams. But I think that they'll be able to hit out of it somewhat. I think that it will be interesting to see this young lefty that throws 102 miles per hour if he can step in and immediately contribute. They have a guy like Ace Reese that could win SEC Player of the Year, Ryan McPherson that is a good pitcher, but do they have the depth across the board? That will be their biggest thing. But they do have the top-tier talent to compete with anybody.
So that should be very interesting. Mississippi State ranked top 5 going into the season, but our Mississippi schools do very well in baseball. We're looking forward to that as well. Folks, we appreciate you joining us on the Magnolia Shine podcast. We will see you on Thursday right here. The one and only Blake Levine alongside myself, Trellis Williams. And until next time, we out.